Okay, good morning. So this is a demonstration of putting together a one layer mask. I'm using pretty dense fabric, so it's only one layer. We start with an 11 by 8 inch piece of fabric, and it's gonna look like this. And I'll show you a picture later of what it looks like when it's on, but it fits really well and it's comfortable. So the supplies that you will need are the fabric, which is 11 by 8 like I mentioned, and a little piece of, we're using aluminum snipped to a 3.5 inch size. It's bendable and it works really well. And then a t-shirt strip about an inch, half an inch to an inch of a strip of t-shirt, and then you just stretch it and it's ready to go. So the first step is to mark the edge on the 11 inch side of the fabric. I mark them all in advance, many of them all in advance, and you mark them at the 3.5, 5.5, and 7.5 inch spots, about an inch in from the edge of the fabric. So once you have that, start with your fabric wrong side up and get your nose wire, and you'll fold in about a 1/2 inch. Place the nose wire at about the halfway mark. Fold in again, and you can kind of feel that your nose wire is centered you can feel the edges, and just try to make it as centered as you can. And those 3.5 and 7.5 inch marks should have some clearance from the edge of the metal, so your needle doesn't hit it. Set your needle up so it's to the left. So if you have the ability on your machine to move your needle to the left, do that, and you can have that setting for the entire sewing of the mask. So let's place that mark right under the foot, at the center of the foot, not where the needle is, but the center of the foot, because the needle, we want left of that. You don't want to damage your needle. And then we'll just, I have my stitch setting at about 3.2 stitch width. And so we'll just do, oops, and I already made a mistake there. Okay, so stop right at the edge. And we're basically making just a little partial rectangle for that wire to live in. And we'll go to the other mark, turn and end it. Okay, so now we have our nose wire in. I had a back stitch in there. I have a computerized machine that did a back stitch in the middle, so just ignore that. We just are just back stitching at the very beginning and the very end, not anywhere else. And so now your nose wire's in. And then what we'll do is turn it, so this is the bottom edge now, and fold that in a 1/2 inch, and then another 1/2 inch. And we'll just hem that all the way across. And I just kind of finger press this down. Some people like to use their iron and do all the pressing, and that makes a nice finished piece, but we're working fast. And so I use my fingers more for pressing. Okay, so now we have our bottom hem. Sorry, the sun is so bright. I hope you can see all this. Now we have our bottom hem, and then this is where it gets a tiny bit tricky. We're going to take the t-shirt tie, and I place it in the mask at the edge, and then what I do is I fold the corners in. I'll show you. So they're folded in on each side. I wonder if you can see that at about 90-degree angles. And then I use my fingers to fold it in again and then again. So it's going to be a finished edge. So it's going to look like that. And I'm really holding in those corners with my thumbs. And then slide that under the machine the less dense side goes under my foot, and then I drag it forward so the foot, it sits right on that first piece of the folded in corner, and then I hem it very close to the fold. I skipped one step that's important, so I'm going to just do the other side so you can see one step. We want to make sure that, we want to make sure that the t-shirt tie can slide through and that it didn't get caught by any of the stitching. And I'll show you, there's a way you can make, you know, really be careful of that before you hem. This is what I do. So I'm folding in the corners, and then I'm folding it in again and again. And then what I do to make sure I have clearance for the t-shirt is I hold both edges down with my thumb and index finger, and then I just give a little tug to make sure it slides through. I do both sides, just make sure it slides through. And then if I'm getting good, when I get good clearance, then I slide it. Make sure you can actually see this. Then I slide it under my machine, the foot. Bring it forward a little so the foot is set right on the edge of the hem, and then begin to get that sewn down. So, snipping